Warning, this video will contain spoilers for Pokemon evolutions and other stuff. The games just came out, so leave! So, Pokemon designs. It's actually a pretty lucrative topic on this channel, as the last two times I talked about it, I got a lot of interesting thoughts and perspectives on the subject matter. And with Scarlet and Violet now being released, and I'm assuming that I've done straight into the game and done a live stream with it, I want to look at some of the designs with the starters and talk about why people seem to hate the fact that most of these designs have bad decisions, at least in their opinions. Then again, people seem to think that fan designs tend to be better than the actual design, so so long as it's just a preference, it isn't a bad thing to enjoy designs made by fans. The problem lies in expectation. It's something that we've seen ever since the early days of Sun and Moon, when the starters were leaked and people got into their heads that the starters would have both a beast and man mode, which would be reliant on which version of the game you got. If that sounds familiar, that's because it's the evolution mechanic for Rockruff and Lycanroc, which, if you ask me, would be an interesting way to differentiate the games and allow more people to have more reason to get both versions, at least from a business perspective. But if you've ever played Sun and Moon, you know that we didn't get that. This unfortunately led to a trend that would continuously crop up ever since, with people hating the starter Pokemon evolutions, claiming that the designs are lazy and that the fan interpretations are better, and if you think the fan interpretations are better, well, that's fine. Really, my issue is when people keep proclaiming that they are better, and then turn around to say the designs in the games are terrible.
What the fuck is that?
Take for example Sprigatito and Fuecoco's evolutions. When Meowscarada and Skeledirge were leaked, a lot of people were complaining about how Weedcat was the worst Pokemon and Among Us Gator is now the best. Why? Well, from what I've seen, is because Gator's on 4 legs and well, the cat's on 2. You think I'm kidding, but I've seen this happen quite a fair bit in the last couple weeks. Now, there's a reason why people say this. They have a clear and obvious preference, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is when people are taking a subjective opinion and proclaiming it to be very loud objective standards. Like, you can honestly express your distaste for a design you don't like, but don't act like said statement is an objective fact. And yet you'll get people who do claim it. These kinds of people are those who don't know the difference between subjective and objective, and thus will argue that the designs are objectively good or bad. Again, I must stress that it's fine if you like a design or dislike one. That's not the problem. The problem is that people are proclaiming that the designs are the worst and that the fan designs are much better, as if it were a fact. We also need to remember the Typhlosion effect. For those unfamiliar with that, it was when Legends Arceus got leaked and we saw that Typhlosion was smoking the Weedcat a bit too much, and people complained about the design, especially how dopey he looked. But the moment we saw it in action, as well as its official artwork, people started to love the baked Hisuian evolution. Now, the only difference is that for the starter evolutions for Scarlet and Violet is that we had in-game images showing them off. Still, I maintain a lot of people jump the gun again because that's always what happens when we get leaks for the starter evolutions. If you're familiar with my channel, you know I'm no stranger to talking about Pokemon's designs and artistic decisions. For better or worse, I like to think I got a shred of credibility in that department, and not just because I have a degree in art design, but because I have a fair bit of design work under my belt and can realize that people like what I dislike, and vice versa. I like all 3 of the starter evolutions designs, because as I've stated multiple times, whether or not a monster design is on 2 or 4 legs isn't a factor for what I consider to be a good or bad design. To me, monsters come in all shapes and sizes, and not all monsters need to be animal shaped, especially when they happen to be monsters that control various elements, warp space and time, and can shoot electricity from their bodies. So whether it be a giant croc, the cat trying to be a phantom thief of hearts, or the JoJo duck, I just want to have fun monsters to fight with other people with. I'm not really going to repeat myself from my other videos since, yeah, they're right there. You can watch where I talk about monster design more in depth in the Pokemon world, so check those out if you want my opinion on. What I will say is now we have to consider something that we really didn't bring up in my last few videos, is that Pokemon designs are now being designed with 3D in mind. Part of the reason why the first few generations of Pokemon had a lot more simplistic designs was due to technical limitations. Now, I don't really agree with that fully myself, since pixel art can have some really complex design work in them, and in the final few generations of pixel Pokemon, we were seeing more elaborate designs being made. That being said, we also need to remember not every Pokemon is going to appeal to every person's design sensibilities, or what you think a Pokemon should be. A generation of Pokemon is more than likely not going to fit your own personal wants, and everyone's ideas of what makes an ideal Pokemon is going to be different. We've got so many new designers at Pokemon now. Designers for so many monsters need to make quite a variety of Pokemon and fill in certain niches. Cute, round, sharp, long, monstrous, furry, humanoid, animalistic, iron-based, or even legendary creatures. And frankly, I think that people who give Pokemon an actual try and not just judge them on a book before dismissing them, who knows, you may actually find a Pokemon you like if you spend enough time with it. I, myself, used to hate Garbodor, but now it's one of my favorite Pokemon because I had to defend the damn thing so many times from people who think the concept is just terrible. Now I like it, and now my life is sad. I want to focus more on the human designs in Pokemon. They tend to be based more in character design, and if I'm honest, I don't really care for a lot of them in recent time. Let's start with Scarlet and Violet's player character designs, and I know what's going to be a response to this when I bring it up. The designs are really basic, but that's because there's going to be a lot of customization for the characters for people to choose, and yeah, that's a good thing. Having so many options and no longer be locked to a specific gender is a good thing for all the items you can choose. You have to be crazy to think otherwise. Besides, I'm looking forward to having long, luxurious hair as a guy in the game. My counter argument is that you can still give the player characters some more iconic designs and still have the massive amount of customization that we're going to be getting. And still have the massive amount of customization that we've gotten in the games. I don't see any personality in these character designs. They're too mundane. And again, the idea is that the point of a school uniform, but as I always say, it doesn't matter if there's a reason for a choice. That doesn't mean that people will like said reason or said choice. I certainly don't, especially when you consider that the previous trainers had customization, still had base designs that are at least memorable. Take, for example, Gloria from Sword and Shield. People immediately took to her being Scottish because of her design.
You know, Vince be like, ah, it's Tuesday and it's, yeah, I'll chill your arms up.
And that to me speaks well to character design. Like, if you look towards the past character designs for player characters, they really stood out from the rest of the cast of characters, and their designs have their own personalities. With Scarlet and Violet, the vibe I get is...
Come play with us, Stewie, forever and ever and ever.
Which, if evil twins is what Pokemon was going for, more power to them, I guess, but the rest of the cast of characters, well, to me, they're hit and miss. Stand fair for a Pokemon human designs, frankly. Although, speaking, I think the design process is a little weaker from Sword and Shield and Legend Arceus. The only exception would be Milo's face, which is the thing of nightmares to me. The issue to me is that Pokemon's human characters are taking on a bit too much of the realistic details and how they're moving away from the Ken Sugimori art style. I think it has to do with the eyes of the characters that are a real major factor with it. If you compare the player characters from Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet, you can see there's a big difference in the eye shape. The character eyes in SV characters are rounder. Much rounder, really. Now, I've heard there's a changing at the guard of Game Freak, with newer and younger people who have much more Western and Eastern media consumptions than the original designers of Pokemon, and that bleeds in what they do when they make their own design. I can see that. Games, animation, fanbases, and so much has evolved since the 90s for better or worse, and there are plenty of influences on Pokemon and the character designs. At the end of the day, while I don't like the style they chose for the humans, I can appreciate that at the very least what they're doing is something different. I don't like it, but hey, they're doing something different, and hey, at least it's not another Milo situation. You know, I wrote the script based on the leaks I saw, and it's gonna be friggin' hilarious if there's a character just like Milo and Scarlet and Violet that I missed. That'll just be my luck. Regardless, by the time you've seen this, I've already streamed the game. I'm making this video to talk about what I've seen before then, and hey, I'll make a follow-up video if anyone's interested in that. I'm not gonna rag on the games for the design work without having played them, but I like to say that I enjoyed them regardless, and I do appreciate all the work that Game Freak has put in. Yeah, I got my criticism of Game Freak, both from a design and character, and even company basis, but I still enjoy their games. In any case, comment and remember to examine your fandom. God, how many years has it been since I said that?